Part 1. The Abandoned Highway. The rain had already washed the world to grey by the time Detective Clara Hayes pulled onto Highway 17. Her wipers beat a steady rhythm, fighting the sheets of drizzle as she drove deeper into the stretch of road locals called Mile Marker Zero. She had heard the stories, whispered in bars and roadside diners, cars left running with their drivers gone, families who stopped for gas and were never seen again, truckers who swore they saw lights where there should have been none, or heard voices on the CB long after the channel went dead. Clara didn't believe in ghost stories. She believed in crime and in people doing terrible things to each other. But 3 disappearances in 6 weeks, all within 10 miles of one another, wasn't coincidence. The latest was a college kid named Matthew Pierce. His Jeep had been found idling on the shoulder, headlights still cutting through the fog, wallet in the cup holder, phone on the seat, driver's door wide open, no footprints, no signs of a struggle, nothing but silence. Clara slowed as she approached the stretch. The road looked like any other. Cracked asphalt slick with rain, broken guardrails, weeds pressing up through the seams. A battered green sign leaned on rusted poles. Mile Zero. She parked behind the abandoned Jeep, its hazard lights still blinking in the downpour. A county cruiser was already there, the deputy inside looking bored until Clara's headlights lit his cab. Deputy Ron Miller climbed out, rain dripping from the brim of his hat. "Detective Hayes," he said, voice raised over the weather. "Hell of a night for this." "Hell of a stretch of road," Clara muttered, pulling her coat tighter. Miller scratched at his beard. "Place gives me the creeps. Been sitting here 2 hours, and the radio keeps crackling with voices. Dispatch says it's static. Didn't sound like static to me." Clara glanced at the Jeep. The interior light was still on, illuminating the empty driver's seat. "Any prints?" "Nothing clear." Rain washed everything off the pavement. Clara leaned into the Jeep. The air inside smelled faintly of cologne, undercut by something sharper, almost metallic. She tapped the dash. Ignition on. Engine humming steady. The phone lay on the passenger seat. She slipped on gloves and picked it up. "Dead battery." Miller shifted uneasily. "I've been on this job 15 years, detective. Seen car wrecks, bar fights, meth labs blowing sky high. But this..." He gestured at the Jeep. "This feels wrong." Clara said nothing. She had learned long ago that fear had a way of filling silence. She walked a few yards down the shoulder, scanning the slick asphalt with her flashlight. The beam caught nothing but rain and weeds bending under the storm. No footprints. No tire tracks leaving the road, just absence. Back at the car, Miller lit a cigarette despite the rain. "You hear what they call this place?" Clara raised an eyebrow. "The Vanishing Point." He exhaled smoke. "Started with truckers in the 80s. Said folks who break down out here don't always make it back. Whole damn stretch is cursed." "Curses don't strand people," Clara said, pocketing the dead phone. "Someone does. Or something." Miller didn't argue. Clara spent the next hour combing the roadside. The storm eased, leaving behind a mist that clung low and heavy. The world felt muffled, as if wrapped in damp cloth. Her radio crackled. "Clara." She froze. The voice was hers. Static swallowed the sound before she could respond. She tapped the mic. "Dispatch, say again." Nothing but hiss. Miller's radio buzzed too. He frowned, lifting it. "Thought you called in." "I didn't," Clara said. The mist thickened, swallowing the road until the Jeep's hazard lights looked like twin eyes glaring from the dark. For a moment, she thought she saw movement in the fog, a shadow walking along the center line. She raised her light. Nothing. Her pulse quickened. She didn't like believing in ghost stories, but the silence pressed too heavy, the air too still. She turned slowly, beam cutting through the mist. And there it was. A figure, 30 yards down the road. Human shape, indistinct, head tilted toward her. "Hey!" Clara called. The beam of her flashlight quivered against the fog. The figure didn't move. She took a step forward. Miller grabbed her arm. "Don't!" "Could be Pierce," she snapped. "Or it could be whatever took him." His grip was iron. When she looked back, the figure was gone. They searched until dawn, finding nothing. No sign of Matthew Pierce, no sign of anyone. But as Clara drove back toward the city, her radio buzzed again. "You're already marked," her own voice whispering. She gripped the wheel tighter, refusing to look in the rearview mirror, because some part of her was certain she'd see someone sitting in the back seat if she did. The Vanishing Point had taken notice of her, and it never gave back what it claimed. Part 2. The missing cases, Detective Clara. Hayes didn't sleep when she got home. The glow of dawn had barely crept through her apartment blinds before she was already at her desk, the unease from mile marker 0 still gnawing at her ribs. The coffee in her cup had gone cold, ignored while she sifted through files stacked like a paper wall around her. The Pierce case was supposed to be another missing persons report in a long line of them, but the moment she heard her own voice whispering back through the radio, she knew this was different. What she didn't know was how deep the pattern went. She spread the case photos across the desk. Matthew Pierce, 21, vanished 3 nights ago. Jeep still running. Doors open. No trace. 6 weeks earlier, Elaine Monroe, 32, car found near the same stretch. Wallet and phone inside. Vanished. And before that, a trucker, Anthony Del Vecchio, who disappeared while hauling cargo. His rig was discovered parked neatly on the shoulder. Headlights still on. CB radio buzzing with static. 3 people. 3 vehicles. Same stretch of road. Same nothingness left behind. But then Clara dug deeper. Buried in the archives, she found a case from 1994. A woman named Darlene Foster, found last seen near mile marker 0, car abandoned. No body. And another from 1981. Then 1976. Then her skin prickled. Every decade, almost like clockwork, someone vanished near the same mile marker. It wasn't random. It was cyclical. She leaned back, rubbing her temples, eyes gritty with exhaustion. If this was the work of a serial offender, it was one who either had the patience of a saint or the lifespan of a ghost. And yet, the files didn't lie. Her phone buzzed, yanking her from thought. Unknown number, she answered. Hayes, a crackle, then silence. And then, her own voice. You shouldn't be digging here. She dropped the phone like it burned. The line went dead. Her pulse hammered against her throat. She picked the phone back up, hands shaking. Call log showed nothing. No missed calls. No incoming. She wasn't imagining this. By afternoon, Clara was back on Highway 17, the day clear but the air heavy with damp heat. The storm had rolled on, but the mist still clung low in places, as though it had nowhere else to go. She stopped at the Rusty Nail, a truck stop a few miles before mile marker 0. The place smelled of fried food and diesel, filled with truckers nursing coffee at chipped counters. She flashed her badge at the clerk, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes. Detective Hayes, I'm investigating the recent disappearances down the highway. You hear anything? The woman stiffened. Not my business. Clara studied her. 3 people in 6 weeks vanish in your backyard and you don't hear whispers. The clerk hesitated, then leaned in. You don't want to go down that road after dark, detective. Folks say it ain't right. Never has been. Things shift out there. Shift? The woman's gaze darted to the windows. Road signs that weren't there before. Gas stations that disappear when you circle back. Heard a trucker swear he saw himself walking along the shoulder, like looking in a damn mirror. Clara's pulse quickened. The shadow in the mist. Know anyone who's seen it up close? She asked. The woman nodded toward the far corner. An old trucker sat slouched in a booth, hat low over his face, hands wrapped around a chipped mug. His eyes followed Clara before she even approached. You're a cop, he said, voice rough. Detective, she corrected, sliding into the booth. I'm told you've seen something out there. He sipped his coffee. Seen too much. Clara leaned in. Tell me. The man's eyes were bloodshot, haunted. It was 15 years back. I was hauling freight down 17, rain coming down in sheets. Radio kept cutting out. Thought nothing of it until I saw a fella walking in the middle of the damn road. Slammed the brakes, near jackknifed the rig. He swallowed hard, voice low. But he didn't move. Just stood there, staring. When I got a good look, detective, it was me. Same jacket, same face, same eyes staring back. And then, poof, gone in the fog. Clara's stomach knotted. And the disappearances. The trucker's hands trembled. I seen it happen. Car in front of me, tail lights glowing red. Then the lights stretched, like someone was pulling the road like taffy. And then they just slipped away. Whole damn car, gone. You reported this? He laughed, bitter. Told the sheriff. He said I was drunk. Maybe I was, but drunk don't make the road eat people. Clara left the diner unsettled, her head full of threads she couldn't untangle. Doppelgangers, disappearing cars, time loops. The logical part of her mind said stress, misperceptions, sleep deprivation. The other part whispered that she was already caught in something she didn't understand. That night, she returned to her office and requested old federal records. Her clearance got her only so far, but enough slipped through the cracks. In 1972, the US Department of Energy had conducted classified tests along Highway 17. The project name was redacted, but the description mentioned dimensional variance and spatial instability. Experiments. Right on mile marker 0. Her breath caught. The disappearances weren't random at all. They were collateral damage. Near midnight, Clara sat in her car outside the precinct, files spread across the passenger seat. The city around her buzzed faintly, alive with neon and traffic, but she couldn't shake the chill from the highway. Her radio clicked on by itself. Clara. She froze. It wasn't her voice this time. It was a man's, broken, terrified. "Help us!" Trapped. The voice dissolved into static. Then another cut through. Closer. "Urgent! Don't follow the road!" Her headlights flickered, and just for a moment in the rearview mirror, she swore she saw someone sitting in the back seat. Part 3. Into the Fog. The abandoned research facility sat like a wound in the earth. Clara found it after 2 days of digging through old survey maps, piecing together half-redacted government files, and interviewing locals who would rather spit on the ground than talk about mile marker 0. Hidden 3 miles off Highway 17, deep in pine woods thick enough to swallow a car whole. The place wasn't marked on any current records, but it was there. Chain-link fencing sagged around the perimeter, eaten by rust and time. A faded government warning sign clung to the gate, its paint flaking. Restricted area, US property. Trespassers will be prosecuted. No patrols, no guards, just silence. Clara squeezed through a tear in the fence, her flashlight cutting across the weeds that had grown high enough to hide broken concrete paths. The air was cooler here, unnaturally still. The main building loomed ahead, a concrete block structure with shattered windows and vines crawling up its sides. Letters above the entrance had long since peeled away, leaving only faint ghosts of words. She stepped inside. The smell hit first. Damp, mildew, metal long corroded. Her light cut through dust motes, falling on empty hallways lined with doors that hung half open. It felt less like walking into a ruin and more like walking into something that had been deliberately abandoned mid-step. Clipboards still sat on desks. Papers yellowed with age littered the floor. A coffee cup, rim-stained brown, rested beside a phone that hadn't rung in decades. Clara crouched to pick up a file folder. The paper crumbled in her gloves, but the header was still visible. Project Eidolon. She read the faded lines beneath. Words like dimensional mapping, spatial variance, human subjects. Her stomach tightened. Further inside, she found a room lined with broken reel-to-reel recorders and lab equipment covered in dust. A bulletin board still bore pinned photographs, grainy black and white shots of the highway, the same stretch where the Pierce boy had vanished. Notes scribbled in red ink circled areas around. Mile marker 0. Arrows pointed to phrases like temporal distortion and echo phenomena. She snapped photos on her phone, every nerve buzzing with unease. A door creaked down the hall. Clara stiffened, hand instinctively going to her gun. "Police!" she called. Her voice echoed down the corridor, swallowed by silence. She moved cautiously toward the sound. Her light skimmed across peeling paint, broken tiles, and finally landed on a heavy steel door marked with yellow hazard stripes. Unlike the others, this one was shut tight. Beside it was a control panel, dead and dark. But the door wasn't what made her blood run cold. It was the sound. From behind the steel came faint scratching. Then a voice. "Help! Help me!" She froze. The voice was ragged, distorted, but human. "Pierce," she whispered, pressing closer. "Can't get out." Her skin prickled. It sounded like Matthew Pierce, but not exactly. Like the recording of him had been stretched and warped. Clara tried the door. Locked. The scratching grew frantic, then cut off, and the silence that followed was worse. By dusk, Clara had gathered everything she could carry. Files, photos, scraps of evidence. She drove back toward the city, her hands white-knuckled on the wheel. The mist rolled in thick as she neared mile marker 0, curling like fingers across the asphalt. Her headlights caught it, carving tunnels through grey that seemed alive. The radio hissed. "Clara." She gritted her teeth. "Turn back." The voice was hers again. And then another layered over it. Dozens of voices, men and women, screaming, pleading, blending into a cacophony that made her heart slam against her ribs. She fumbled for the dial, shutting the radio off, but the voices didn't stop. They came from the fog outside. She hit the gas. The mist thickened, swallowing the road until she could barely see 10 feet ahead. Her headlights stretched endlessly, like the asphalt refused to end. Mile markers began repeating. She passed mile 0 once, twice, 3 times. Her breath quickened. The world had looped, and then, out of the fog, a figure. She slammed the brakes, tires shrieking. The car skidded to a halt inches from the shape standing dead center in the lane. Her beam illuminated a man, his clothes tattered, eyes wild, skin pale as paper. His lips moved soundlessly. Clara rolled the window down a crack. "Get off the road!" she shouted. The man's voice was a whisper, carried on the mist. "Don't. Follow the road." And then he dissolved. One moment there, the next. Gone, like smoke scattered by wind. Clara sat frozen, heart hammering. Her rearview mirror trembled with motion. Slowly, against every instinct, she looked and nearly screamed. In the back seat sat Matthew Pierce, or something that wore his face. His eyes were black pits, and when he opened his mouth, the sound that came out wasn't human at all. Part 4. The folded road. Clara Hayes didn't remember slamming on the gas, only the roar of the engine and the blur of asphalt vanishing beneath her headlights. The thing in her back seat hadn't moved. It hadn't needed to. The image of Matthew Pierce's hollow eyes burned in her skull. She drove until the mist thinned, until the highway seemed to spit her out onto clearer asphalt. When she finally pulled over, chest heaving, the back seat was empty, but she knew what she'd seen. And worse, she knew it wasn't over. The next day, Clara returned to her office with the files from the facility spread across her desk. Project Eidolon, dimensional mapping, spatial variance, human subjects. Her phone rang. The caller ID was blocked. She answered cautiously. "Detective Hayes," a voice whispered through the line, ragged and thin. "Stop, or you'll fold." Before she could respond, the line went dead. She sat frozen, the words echoing in her head. "You'll fold." That night, Clara found herself back on Highway 17. She didn't plan it. Her hands had simply steered her there, as though something unseen was guiding her. The road stretched ahead, wet with a fine drizzle. The trees leaned in on either side, skeletal against the pale moonlight. Her radio clicked alive. "Don't stop driving." The voice was her own again. The mist rose fast, curling into the beam of her headlights. The world beyond shrank, until all she could see was a tunnel of asphalt lined with grey walls. And then the signs began, mile marker 1. Then mile marker 0. Then mile marker 1 again. Her pulse quickened. She was looping. The road was folding. The air inside the car grew heavy, pressing down on her chest. She adjusted the wheel, but the lines of the highway refused to change. Every bend, every marker repeated like a broken reel. Her phone buzzed on the passenger seat. One new video. No number. She tapped it open with trembling fingers. The screen showed her own dashboard, her own hands on the wheel, and her own voice whispering, "You can't escape yourself." She dropped the phone like it had burned her. Headlights flashed in the mirror. Another car approached fast, too fast, bearing down on her tail. She gritted her teeth and pulled to the shoulder. But when it passed, her breath caught. The car was hers. Same make, same model, same license plate. Through the window, she caught a glimpse of the driver. It was her. Clara slammed her brakes. Her double's car vanished into the fog ahead, swallowed whole. She sat gripping the wheel, sweat dampening her palms. The mist swirled, coiling tighter, as though the road itself were alive and watching. She got out. The air was damp, colder than it should have been. Her flashlight cut thin tunnels through the fog, barely touching the dark beyond. Her footsteps echoed oddly, like she wasn't walking on asphalt but through a hollow space. And then she saw her, 30 yards away, half hidden in mist, herself. The figure wore her coat, her stance, her face. Only the eyes were wrong, too dark, too hollow. The double tilted its head, mirroring her. Clara raised her gun. "Who are you?" The figure didn't answer. It only smiled, her own smile, stretched too wide. Then it spoke, in her voice. "You're already inside." The fog surged. She fired, the shot cracking across the highway. The double dissolved like smoke, the mist swallowing it whole. Clara staggered back, chest heaving, the echo of her gunshot fading into silence. But the road had changed. Where the asphalt should have continued ahead, it folded upward, curling impossibly like a sheet of paper bent in half. The yellow line stretched into the sky, looping back down like the world itself had bent at the seams. Her mind reeled, stomach lurching as the horizon tilted. She backed toward her car, fighting the pull in her gut. And then her radio crackled again. "Don't look behind you." Her blood ran cold. She turned and froze. The back seat wasn't empty. Her double sat there now, grinning wide, whispering in her voice. Part 5. Between Worlds. Clara Hayes didn't remember opening the door of her car. One moment, she was staring into the grinning reflection of herself in the back seat. The next, she was stumbling backward into the mist, gun clutched tight, lungs burning with panic. The fog had weight now. It pressed against her skin like damp cloth, thick and suffocating. Her flashlight beam broke apart in it, swallowed before it reached more than a few feet. Behind her, the folded highway loomed like some impossible origami of asphalt and paint. Yellow lines climbed upward into the sky before looping down, vanishing into the mist like a Mobius strip. The air hummed, a low vibration like standing too close to high-voltage wires. And then, voices, not from her radio this time, from the fog itself. "Clara, help us." "He's still here." She spun in a circle, trying to pin the direction, but the whispers bled from everywhere at once. Some were soft, desperate. Others were twisted, broken, like words dragged through static. Her breath caught when a figure staggered out of the grey. A man, shirt torn, eyes wide and vacant. His lips moved, soundless. Clara raised her light. "Pierce?" The man blinked against the glare, then whispered, "Don't. Follow the road." Before she could move, 3 more figures emerged. A woman in a sundress, a trucker in coveralls, a child clutching a stuffed bear. Their faces were pale, their movements jerky, like marionettes tugged on invisible strings. Her stomach turned. "These were the missing! Stay back!" She barked, gun trembling in her hands, but they didn't advance. They only stood in silence, staring at her with hollow eyes, lips twitching like they were trying to speak words they no longer remembered. And then, one of them did. The trucker rasped, "We're not supposed to leave." The fog shifted. Shapes writhed within it, larger than people. Long, spindly limbs, shadows bending where no light existed. The figures shrank back in fear, retreating toward the mist as though her presence had endangered them. "Wait!" Clara shouted, but they dissolved, pulled back into the grey. Something else was coming. The hum in the air deepened, resonating in her bones. Clara stumbled forward, following the faint echo of voices. She didn't know why. Instinct, maybe, or the gut-deep certainty that if she stayed still, the fog would swallow her whole. The ground shifted under her boots. Asphalt cracked, bled into dirt, then stretched back into asphalt again, as though the road itself couldn't decide what it wanted to be. Buildings appeared in the distance. Gas stations, diners, motels, half-formed, wavering like mirages. Their neon signs flickered with words that meant nothing, scrambled letters and broken numbers. She stepped closer to one, a diner with windows clouded by condensation. Inside, shadowy figures sat at booths unmoving. She pressed her face to the glass. Every figure inside turned its head at once. Their faces were blurred, features sliding like melting wax. Clara stumbled back, bile rising in her throat. The door creaked open. She bolted, heart pounding. She ran until her lungs ached. The fog thinned, and she found herself standing on a stretch of road that looked almost normal. Asphalt, guardrails, mile marker signs. For a moment, she thought she was out, until she saw the sign, mile marker 0. Relief collapsed into dread. She'd been here before, and then a voice behind her. "You're running in circles!" She whirled, gun raised. Her double stood in the middle of the road, grinning. The same trench coat, the same face, but the eyes were too black, too empty. "You're not real," Clara whispered. Her double tilted its head. "Neither are you. Not anymore." The mist coiled around them, the hum intensifying until the ground itself trembled. Clara fired. The bullet tore through the figure, but it didn't fall. The hole in its chest rippled like water, then sealed. Her double's smile widened. You're already marked, Clara. The moment you stepped onto this road, the world bent. Guardrails twisted, stretching like vines. The asphalt split, yawning open to reveal endless darkness below. And from that void, arms reached, pale skeletal arms clawing upward, grasping at her ankles. She fired again, pulling away, but the ground gave beneath her boots. She fell, tumbling into blackness. When Clara came to, she was lying on asphalt that wasn't asphalt at all. It shimmered, translucent, like glass stretched into the shape of a road. Beneath it churned endless void, shadows swimming like sharks in black water. Figures moved around her. Dozens, hundreds, the missing. They shuffled aimlessly along the glass road, eyes vacant, mouths whispering nonsense, their voices layered into a static chorus, fragments of sentences bleeding together. Get out, no way out. Already gone. Clara staggered to her feet, chest tight. She had crossed over. This wasn't Highway 17. This was the in-between, and once you entered the vanishing point, you didn't come back. Part 6. The last fold Clara's boots scraped against the glassy road, her own reflection warping beneath her. Below, the void shifted with movement, vast serpentine shadows twisting like things too big for comprehension. Every instinct screamed that she shouldn't look down. The missing shuffled around her in silence, eyes hollow. Voices mumbling fragments of memory, their words bled together into static. Left the lights on. He was waiting at the marker. Don't fold. Clara's throat tightened. These weren't echoes. They were people. Trapped here, walking endless circles until they forgot themselves. And unless she broke whatever this place was, she'd join them. Ahead the road narrowed, curling upward like a ribbon twisting into the mist. At its end glowed a faint red light, pulsing faintly, like the heartbeat of this impossible world. The closer she came, the more the whispers sharpened. A single phrase rose above the static. The fold consumes. Her radio, still clipped to her belt, crackled alive. Detective Hayes. Her breath caught. It was dispatch. A normal voice. Real. She pressed the button, desperate.
This is Hayes. I'm here. I'm alive.
Do you hear me? A pause. Then the voice repeated, exactly the same. Detective Hayes. Her stomach dropped. It wasn't dispatch. It was the road itself. Mimicking. And then she saw him. At the end of the glass road, standing before the pulsing red glow. Detective Matthew Pierce. He looked different. His uniform torn, his face pale, but his eyes burned with a strange clarity. Unlike the others, he wasn't hollow. Pierce, Clara whispered, lowering her gun. You're alive. He shook his head slowly. Not alive. Not dead. Stuck. She swallowed hard. What is this place? He glanced at the glowing red orb behind him, its light stretching and bending the road like heat mirage. They called it the Fold. Some experiment. Decades ago. Trying to map dimensions, open shortcuts. But it didn't stop at numbers and theories. The road itself became a seam. A scar. He stepped closer, face tense. Anyone who crosses at mile marker 0 gets pulled in. And once you're here, you can't leave. Clara's grip tightened on her gun. There has to be a way. Pierce's mouth twitched into something that wasn't quite a smile. There is. But it isn't what you think. The fog shifted behind him, and her double stepped into view. It smiled, calm, patient. She still doesn't understand, it said in her voice. Clara aimed her weapon, fury boiling in her chest. Shut up! The double tilted its head, eyes black voids. You think you're the detective, the hunter. But the Fold doesn't create doubles, Clara. It shows what's already here. Her pulse hammered. You're lying. The double's grin widened. Am I? Who put you on this case? Who drove you here? Who's been steering you toward the marker every step of the way? Clara's memories flashed. Each time she told herself she hadn't meant to drive to Highway 17. The way her hands had just gone there. No, she muttered, shaking her head. That was me. I made those choices. The double leaned closer. Exactly. You were always marked. The glass road vibrated violently. Cracks spread beneath her boots, glowing red like veins of fire. The missing shrieked, collapsing to their knees as the void below surged upward. Pierce shouted, Clara! If the Fold collapses, it takes everything with it. Every town, every road connected. This whole stretch of reality goes under, the double whispered at her shoulder. Let it. Step through me, and you'll be free. No more chasing shadows. No more fear, Clara's mind reeled. She could feel it now. The weight in her chest, the static in her head. The fold was inside her, winding its way through her thoughts. She had one chance. Not to escape, but to end it. She raised her gun. The double laughed. Bullets won't stop me. You know that. Clara's jaw tightened. It's not for you. She turned the barrel on herself. For a heartbeat, everything stilled. Then she pulled the trigger. The shot ripped through her chest. But instead of pain, light erupted, blinding, searing, red and white crashing outward like a star exploding. Her double screamed, its body fracturing into shards of shadow that dissolved into the mist. The glass road split wide, shattering like ice. The missing cried out, their hollow eyes flaring with colour. Memories flooding back as they dissolved into light, freed from their endless shuffle. Pierce reached toward her, his voice breaking. Clara! The red glow swallowed everything. When Clara opened her eyes, she was lying on asphalt. Real asphalt. Dawn light bled across the horizon. Birds sang faintly in the trees. Her chest heaved, whole. No wound. She sat up slowly. Highway 17 stretched ahead. Empty. Quiet. Beside her lay her badge, and next to it, a single-mile marker sign. The number was gone. Blank metal, scrubbed clean. The fold was gone. But so was Pierce. Weeks later, Clara sat in her office, staring at the case files spread across her desk. The official report listed the disappearances as unresolved. Highway 17 was closed indefinitely for structural repairs. Her fellow officers avoided asking her questions. Maybe they sensed she didn't have answers. But sometimes, late at night, when the city fell quiet, her radio still crackled, and she heard her own voice whisper, "Don't stop driving."